Welcome back. House Speaker Mike Johnson now promising to push for more Ukraine aid when Congress is back in session, drawing a divided response among lawmakers at a moment when his leadership is being questioned by a few. Joining me now is Oklahoma Senator Markwayne Mullin. He's a member of the Senate Armed Services and Environmental and Public Works Committees. Senator, your thoughts?
Well, you know, Mike Johnson is doing what he needs to do here as a leader. And keep in mind, a lot of this idea about the loan started from President Trump. President Trump put out a Truth Social post and said we should give Ukraine money through a loan process, which is called the Lend-Lease Act from 1941. So Mike he's not just bringing Ukraine aid. He's working out a package, a deal that we can support Ukraine, which we have a federal obligation to because of the Budapest Memorandum from 1994. But he's also looking at simple things that we can do on the border. And he's also looking at aid for Israel and Taiwan. So this is a package that not one thing will probably be able to pass Congress, but if you'll put all four of them together, you can. So Mike's in a very tough situation. Speaker Johnson's in a very tough situation, Maria, doing what he can to lead and move forward, which isn't tough. I mean, isn't easy with a very slim margin he has in the House.
Yes, I understand that. And unfortunately, you are hanging on by a thread in terms of the majority. Right. But there's one thing that is not being discussed, and that is border security. Senator, how long have the Republicans been saying we need to secure the border? And we've got continuing resolution after continuing resolution, spending conversations about Ukraine, about Israel, and all this other stuff. You can have as many packages as you want, but first priority, according to the Republicans, was to secure the border, but you're unable to do it.
Well, with this package that Speaker Johnson is trying to put forward, it will have simple border security in there. Very simple things like parole reform, where we can't automatically parole the individuals, where they can only claim asylum through a legal point of entry, not walking through the desert or walking around the wall. And at the same time, they have to claim asylum in the first country of entry, which means we had 300,000 people in the month of March come across the border illegally and claim asylum. Only 18,000 would be able to claim asylum if they had to claim in first country, because what that means is the first country you come to, meaning Mexico, United States, or Canada, you have to claim asylum. We only had 18,000 Mexican citizens that crossed the border in February. We had 21,000 Chinese nationalists. All those individuals would have to remain in Mexico, meaning claim asylum in Mexico, not the United States.
Yeah, but you're gonna have to get the Mexican government's agreement on that, aren't you? You can't just stash people in Mexico. What?
No, there's already a pact. There's already a North American pact between Canada, Mexico, and the United States. The United States is the only one that doesn't enforce it. Mexico and Canada enforces it. Someone leaving the United States cannot claim asylum in their country. They can only claim it in the United States. So we already have it, the pact. It's already there, which is part of the remain in Mexico part. That was what President Trump put in place.
So why is Joe Biden blowing that off?
Who knows? I mean, why did he reverse 100 executive orders on the border in the first 100 days? Actually, it was 94, but in the first 100 days he was in office. I have no idea. You can't explain crazy, and that's what's happening in the White House right now. That what is going on in the southern border, President Biden could immediately take executive orders and reinstate Trump's policies and secure the border tomorrow.
But he's not doing it.
But he's not going to do that.
He's not doing it. And you're talking about some fringe items at the border. The House passed H.R. 2. Why can't the Senate just pick up H.R. 2 and use that? And also, you're talking about it's already in place. Then why is President Obrador, the president of Mexico, threatening the United States, saying unless you send $20 billion every year to Latin America, $10 billion to Mexico alone, then the flow is going to continue?
Well, he knows that he can bully President Biden because he has a very weak president of the United States right now. Zero chance that conversation would happen if we had a strong president like President Trump in office. And why he is not doing it and why they're not bringing up H.R. 2, I don't know. Schumer should bring up H.R. 2. It is a gold standard of what needs to happen on the border. Unfortunately, Biden has already said that he will veto it and won't bring it up, and Schumer said it was dead on arrival. And this is what happens when you have a divided government. This is why, and we hear this, I know, Maria, you know this as good as anybody. But this is why elections have serious consequences, and that's why we're looking forward to November to kick these guys out of office.
Well, let me get your take on foreign policy as well, because we know where economic policy is. He's about to implement $5.5 trillion of new taxes, but the world is on fire. Iran's president is now vowing revenge against Israel after the deadly IDF airstrike on Iranian consulate in Syria. They say Israel will be punished, but the U.S. Department of Defense is distancing itself from that strike. Watch this.
You mentioned that the United States reached out to the Iranians. Can you explain why? I mean, I understand the circumstances, but what is the rationale in doing so?
To make clear that the U.S. had nothing to do with those strikes.
So there you go, Senator. The U.S. doesn't want to be anywhere near it.
You know, peace through strength is where power comes from. And the Middle East respects strength. They do not respect this president. We know exactly where the terrorist organizations are being funded from, and it's Iran. And for Israel to be able to win the war on Hamas, they have to go after the head of the snake, and that's Iran right now. And unfortunately, you have a president that's not even backing Israel like they should. Israel is our strongest ally in the Middle East. They've been there for us. They'll fight with us. And unfortunately, you're having a president that's trying to appease the Middle East in a very bad neighborhood. And keep in mind, Israel didn't start this war. Hamas did. That was funded by Iran. They started on October 7th. We should support what they're doing. No one came out to us and said you should limit what you do after 9/11. We went straight after the head of the snake, and that's what Israel has to do here, and that's what they did in Syria.
Well, let me get your take on this current state of affairs. Former President Trump is leading Joe Biden in 6 out of 7 swing states. President Trump spoke at a campaign rally in Michigan yesterday. He's warning voters of the fate of the world if President Biden is reelected. Watch this.
If you don't want illegal alien criminals crawling through your windows and ransacking your drawers, then you must vote for the fact that we have to throw crooked Joe Biden out. We can't put two sentences together. And he's dealing with Putin, and he's dealing with President Xi, and he's dealing with Kim Jong-un, all people I know very well. We were under no threat from anybody until this guy got in office. Now they're talking nuclear all the time. Now you're not safe, I will tell you. We could end up in World War III with this lunatic.
What do you think? Are we safe, Senator?
No, he's absolutely correct. What happens when we have a weak leader in the United States and a weak presence in the United States, you create a vacuum. And you have dictators like Putin and President Xi that's going to try filling that vacuum and going after weaker countries that may not have the ability to defend themselves. And when we are strong, people fear us. And it starts with the economy, too. And when we are strong through the economy, which the economy begins with energy, because the energy is the backbone of the economy, then we can control a lot of what happens around the world through the economy because people want to do business with us. Then when you have a very strong military and a very strong president that's willing to use the military, not buy friends through appeasement, then people fear and respect it. At the same time, it creates stabilization. And we don't have stabilization through the United States or through the world because we have Joe Biden in office.
Well, do you think there's a chance that the Republicans can gain control of the Senate? Who do you want to see leading the Senate right now?
Absolutely. We 100% can control it with West Virginia, with Governor Justice, with Bernie winning Ohio primary. He's going to be able to win that state. And Tim Sheehy's going to kill it in Montana, and so is Sam Brown in Nevada. So we feel very strong there. I think John Thune's probably going to be the leader of the Senate. He has the relationships. He's working hard at it. He's led even when Mitch McConnell was having medical issues. So I believe Thune will probably be the next leader.
Okay, we will leave it there. Senator, good to see you. Thanks very much.